Hey peoples, welcome to the Inner Geekdom. This is your host Shorty Mafia, and this is your anime hour with my guest Hina. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Hina. You'll see me sometimes here, and you'll see me sometimes on Artificer Alley, starring in some of our tabletop RPG games. Not a whole lot else about me.
All right, that's fine. As most people know, I'm Shorty Mafia. I stream on the weekends mostly for Minecraft Arc. I also do tabletop on our other Twitch, Artificer Alley. So you can check us out on Wednesdays for the Power Ranger stream and Mondays for the Fallout stream. So those are a lot of fun. We will be moving the anime hour till Tuesday starting next week. So this will be the last time this will be on a Thursday, just for heads up to any of those who need to put that on their schedule. But today we will be talking about our top 5 manga and manhwa. So we'll be going back and forth, discussing a little bit, tell what each series is about, why we like it, and if you would recommend it for other people. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Cool. So I guess we will start with my top 5. But we will start with number 5 with Kakaishi.
Ooh.
So if you watched the episode a couple weeks ago, we had brought this up as an anime because the anime is really good. It is one of my favorites to watch, but it's so much better of a read. They didn't finish the anime with it, so it's definitely worth finishing on the manga side. It was aired on Tsunami, but sadly they only got the first season for it. It wasn't as popular in Japan as it was here. But as concise the for the series, for those who didn't see the episode where we talked about it, there's these two families who are protecting this small town from ghosts that are trying to devour the source of power from that city to get stronger and stronger. So these two families are there to protect it, but they each think that they're the rightful heir to the founder of that power. And so they've been rivals for the longest time. And it shows their growth between being rivals and friends and hopefully eventually lovers because our male main character is in love with our female main character, but she only sees him as a brother. So there's the classic romance trope for that. But you see his advances and how he tries to woo her. It's a good read. There's really good story. There's really good plot, and not the special type of plot either. It's like actual good, solid building. Good twists and turns, and they catch a lot of good surprises on it. I highly recommend it if you can pick it up near you. I don't know what's near everybody for bookstores, but I've seen it at like Books a Million, and you can probably find it online as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So with that, we will go with your fifth, which is
My fifth was Monster Musume. And I
yes.
know this is a little bit of a hear me out for a top 5 at least. But it has a little bit of a nostalgia factor for me because I've been following it for a good long while now. The main plot is just that your main character is that in this universe they have the like monsters and humans have brokered a truce and now they're doing exchange programs and they're living together and everything's peaceful. And our main character keeps getting kind of suckered into taking care of a bunch of monster girls who are coming various ways through the exchange program, and it's your typical kind of like a romancy harem, but it's got a little it's I think it's got a lot of heart to it, and I just really like it. I think it's
So
really neat.
for to add on to that, you forgot to add what is the number one rule about adopting a monster girl into your house?
Ah, that you are not supposed to leave them alone out. Like, they're not supposed to leave the house by themselves. You're technically their guardian for that
Yep.
time period.
And because you're your guardian, you can't have relations with them. It is federally illegal to have relations with the monster girls.
I think it is in the beginning. They kind of
Yes.
loosen the rules up towards them. Like after the first, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 chapters, they loosen it up and they're like, we're actually, because initially they're like, oh, you're not supposed to have any kind of relationship with them outside of a just standard guardianship. But
Yep.
about a couple chapters in, they're like, well, actually, we're brokering into, since a lot of the like basically relationships are going to be a part of the world going forward, they were going to start seeing how relationships might work. And of course, his coordinator keeps kind of, I'd say, screwing him over a little bit, throwing him under the bus with the girls. Because of course they all want a relationship with him, and it's the standard. Well, who's it gonna be? And it kind of almost never really resolves. It's always kind of in balance.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own lovely features and personalities, and I do actually appreciate that about the girls.
So that is a little bit more of a mature one, a little etchy.
Let's
So
say the
read,
wrapped in plastic version, if you will.
yes. So read at your own discretion for that. But I would also concur that it is a really good one. Story wise, it is not just plot, not the fancy plot. It actually has some good social building with it. So I
And the main
definitely,
character isn't your standard perv. He's actually like a really good guy at
yeah,
heart.
he's
He's really
really
sweet.
humble. And he's really humble at it. He tries his hardest to stick to that rule of no relations.
And they
But though,
also they don't give him a name for most of it. I think they mention his name exactly once, and it is never mentioned again.
yep. So, all right, then we will go to my number 4, which is Mahu Sensei Najima. So Najima was, as most people call her, Mahu Sensei. People abbreviate either way. Is also a little bit more on the ecchi side. This 10-year-old kid wants to be a wizard because his dad was a super powerful wizard, but kind of just left him on his sister's doorstep and said, "Hey, I'm gonna go save the world. Take care of him." But one day, his dad comes back and saves his life from this demon fucking attack. And from that moment on, he wants to find his dad and confront him and beat him and show that he's stronger. And so to do that, you have to pass this magic school. And upon graduation, you're given a mission. His mission as a 10-year-old kid is to teach a bunch of high schoolers. And
Are they high school or are they middle school?
they are high school because at the end of the series, they go off to college.
But there isn't their school like is it like the K through 12 kind of thing?
No, sectionally, yes, but where they're at, it is high school
Okay.
because they range from the ages of 16 to 18 if you look at their character sheets. So they are mid to late high school.
This is the series. Doesn't this have there's multiple different versions of it, I think.
So you do have a spin-off series, sort of like what they did with Boruto and Naruto, called HQ Holder, and it is
I did know
about
that.
his clone of a grandson, about 200 years in the future.
See, let's see, I did get a little bit into the manga, and it was because I had gotten into the anime first,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I want to read the manga now, and I'd gotten a little bit into it. I haven't gotten that far though, so I'm gonna trust your opinion on it because it does sound really good.
So the manga is so much better than the anime by so many levels.
As it frequently is.
Yes, and there is a lot of etchy parts in it,
Oh yeah.
but it's like accidental etchy. It's not meant to be because he's obviously a 10-year-old kid. No one's purposely showing relations for a 10-year-old kid at the beginning.
Let's see, when
But
he's sneezing everybody's clothes off.
yes, that is a thing that happens. His main magic element is wind. And whenever he sneezes, he loses control of his magic and it blows everybody's clothes off into the where they're just wearing a bra or they'll cover themselves up with their arms. But there's a lot of good development with the kid while he's growing stronger and stronger and stronger and saving the world a couple times, both the magical world and the mundane world.
Because it's
But
also like it's kind of like it's like a it's both fantasy and kind of a slice of life at the same time.
yes, there it kind of hits both brackets. At the beginning, it's more of a slice of life, and towards the end, it goes more into your fantasy world because they go into the magical world or Mars, to be more precise. But it's definitely a good read if you have the time. It is kind of long, so there is that. So if you have time, it's definitely worth picking up.
Absolutely.
So, and then we'll go to your number four.
All right.
Kiss me, yeah,
Kiss him
kiss.
not. I was double checking. I say my favorites kind of vary sometimes. So Kiss Him Not Me is it's very dear to my heart. It is a slice of life about a girl who is a fujoshi, which is girls who are just super into BL. Which is it is a specific kind of manga.
It
Uh
is yaoi. For those who don't know, BL stands for boy love.
So
This
it's a
for
girl who's super into yaoi, and she starts off the series as being overweight, which I know this is it's a very controversial kind of topic with this. She starts off being overweight until her favorite character in an anime series dies, and she spends a week mourning his loss and just miraculously loses all of the weight, and she comes back to school, and all of these guys that she had been shipping with other guys at school, they basically fall in love with her on the spot. And it sounds really cliche at first, but it goes through basically it challenges why they've like basically later on it'll challenge why they fell in love with her for her being skinny when she gains all of the weight back midway through. And they'll go, well, you only like her because of this, but she's got all of these other wonderful qualities, and that's why you should like her. And a lot of them do come around to that, but there are a few of the guys that kind of already like her as she was before, as her, fujoshi loving self. And there's even a lovely lady that joins us in our little reverse harem. Um, and it's in the end, she ends up with the person that loved her for who she was the whole time. And it's one of my favorites for that reason alone, because it stresses that it doesn't matter what her weight was, it doesn't matter what she looked like, it mattered who she was on the inside. She was kind and passionate and loving, and that was the most important part. And of course there's, reverse harem, hijinks, and especially hijinks related to her going to conventions and being super obsessed with anime and all that
mhm.
stuff.
See
It is. Oh,
the weight
sorry.
loss. Sorry about that. The weight loss trope kind of reminds me of, I think it's called Masume's Revenge, where he was a super pudgy kid. His nickname was Piggy,
Oh,
and he was in love with this super rich girl, and he overheard someone call him a fat person that could never find love, and so he says screw that and gets super fit to get revenge on her for calling him fat, to make her
oh,
fall in love with him. And turns out she likes fat guys. Like it was her friend who just didn't like them hanging out. And
oh.
yeah, it did a lot of twists and turns. Definitely a good read as well if you have the time. I think there is an anime for it, if I'm not wrong, on Crunchyroll.
Absolutely.
So
Let's
I
say
definitely recommend that.
that's one of the things that I liked so much about Kiss Him Not Me was that it was super like they brought up how unrealistic her weight loss and her weight gain was, because she lost all of that weight in a week and then she gained it all back in like I'd say a weekend, I think is what it was. She literally just spent a weekend inside eating chocolate and she went back to her original weight. And it goes through that a couple of times, but I really like that they stress that who she is as a person matters more. Like they'll still have her losing the weight, but who she is as a person was more important than who like her weight and all that fun stuff. They use the whole like, wow, I can't believe that this happened so quickly as kind of a trope.
Okay, it definitely doesn't sound like my cup of tea,
Ah,
but I'll definitely have to tell some of my friends who are more into that genre of stuff to check it out.
it's definitely
So,
very, I'd say, like the shojo-esque kind of like the romancy feel to it,
well,
which I know is not everybody's cup of tea.
which I don't know if you were in the episode of the anime. I do watch shoujo things, so romance is a big chapter in my favorite animes. So, like Horiyama, love it, or The Angel Next Door Spoils Me, love it.
Oh,
Those are in my top, and we covered those on the other episode. Maybe we'll do a romance episode one day. I'll just get out some of my favorite ones, but
absolutely.
put a
I
pin
say
in that.
I forgot one more. The one more thing that makes this really nice is that the art style is absolutely gorgeous, and the anime for it does the art style for the anime does it justice. It is just so pretty. You'll look
It's
at it and you're just like, wow, this is just gorgeous to look at.
all right. On the opposite spectrum of that is my number three, which is a little bit of an older manga. It's called Baby Steps,
Ooh.
and it is a tennis manga. And like I was saying, I do like romance ones, and this one is a sports romance.
Ooh.
This kid who is super out of shape, and I mean, he's skinny, but he has no stamina, can't play any sports, falls in love with this tennis girl, like professional tennis girl.
Ooh.
And he joins her tennis club trying to get closer to her. Then he shows his struggles of getting good at tennis because it's not like the Prince of Tennis where he was just born good at it. No, he has to train. He goes on runs till his feet bleed. He gets shin splints. He practices till his hands bleed just to try to get closer and closer to this girl. And then it turns out he likes tennis. Like really likes it and starts to get really good at it and starts to do tournaments and wins prize money. And it shows his development from being just that guy who has a crush to getting the girl and finding a new passion and a new career. He goes to America to train. So it's a really good series.
I actually remember you talking about this on maybe not the episode previous, but the episode before that. I do remember you
That
talking
is,
about this.
you're right. So our tech guy and leader of this Twitch,
Rune.
Rune, or the Summer Sailor, he put that on one of his favorite anime. And I didn't know there was an anime. I've only ever read it. And so that got put on my list of things to watch because of that, which is one of the good things about doing the show is I get to find new series to check out and I get to share and maybe let people read things that maybe they wouldn't have looked up.
Yeah.
So
I say this is the point where I confess something to you. I am not the biggest fan of the sports animes.
it's very niche. It's fully understandable. I wasn't the biggest fan of sports anime at the beginning. I definitely prefer reading it over watching it. But like Kureno Basket is a good watch. Um, that one got really popular in the mid 2000s, like mid 2010s.
Oh, that looks really
Uh,
pretty.
another good one would be like Honey or Honey Lemon. And then I think on my last anime one, I also threw us because we did a sports segment episode. Sora, which is about a really short basketball player in high school. It's really good. So, because it's not just about sports, it shows their character development going through school as well, which is super nice. It's not just sports like Diamond is or Ace of Diamond, I think it's called. That one's really heavy in the baseball scene. Um, so,
Absolutely.
but let's go to your number three.
I think that everybody can agree that my number 3 is in fact deserving of the top 5. That would be the Full Metal Alchemist manga. And I own every single volume of it. I had it in the sets of 3. So I can't imagine that there isn't anybody who isn't aware of Full Metal Alchemist in any capacity, However, I will go ahead and give that recap just in case, because you never know what point in your manga slash anime journey you're on. So Full Metal Alchemist is about two brothers who let's have the best way to phrase that. In a world where alchemy is basically kind of a form of magic, uh give or take, there are
Magic,
rules.
martial arts.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
magic and martial arts would be a good way to put that.
yeah.
So in a world where alchemy is considered, it's like a magic martial artsy thing. Um, these two brothers, Edward and Alphonse, they broke the inherent rules by trying to bring their mom back from the dead, and it cost Edward his leg, and it cost Alphonse his entire body, and Edward gave up his arm to bring his brother back and stick him into a suit of armor. And the series is them trying to figure out how to reverse the effects of this. They're basically trying to get back, like Edward's main goal is to get Alphonse's body back, but Alphonse's goal is to help Edward get at least his arm back.
Yeah.
And it follows them through, and Edward joins their country's version of the military to do it. And it's incredibly riveting. I would spoil so much of it trying to talk about how good this is. It is such a good read, and the anime they made for it, Brotherhood, because we're not going to talk about the other one.
The Abomination.
We're not going to talk about the other
Okay,
one.
to be fair, the other one was good till the ending.
It was
the
good
alternate
on
ending.
its own.
Yes.
But it's incredibly riveting. It's got a lot of really nice morals, challenging. Sometimes the main character doesn't win. There's definitely cases where nobody won in a scenario. And of course, there are a few beloved characters who died. Rip Markiplier.
They do look alike. But
it is uncanny.
Yeah. And most people will see the meme if they're in this space at all with the girl and the dog fusion. That meme is super popular in the community, even if you've never seen the series, but at this point most people have.
Oh yeah.
But that is where that meme comes from if people didn't know. It's a good series in my opinion. There are a lot of holes in it, but it's the early 2000s when this was released. It's understandable.
It's also a lot of this is a nostalgia factor thing for me. And I guess it is that way for a lot of people, because it's definitely, it wasn't my first, but it was among my first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I read it super early. I watched it before I read it, like most people.
Yeah, I think I did too.
I think I saw it on Toonami one day, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then went to my local library and read it. So, definitely was worth getting into for those who haven't yet. But with that, we will go to my number 2. Ooh. Which is really funny because it is another sports one. It is cross. I just got called a nerd, but cross game. And not just cross game, because if I was picking my favorite mangakin, it would be this author. He has never put out anything that I've hated, but Cross Game was the first one I read by him. And there's a little bit of tragedy in it. It's a baseball sports anime with these kids growing up. Their childhood crush gets hit by a car. And it turns out his childhood crush's little sister gets feelings for him, but he always thought that she hated him. And it shows their development of growing closer and closer together. Aww. And if anyone has ever seen this art style, it probably isn't this one you're thinking of, because he draws the same characters for every series. He just changes their names. There are some
authors that are just like that. The author for Inuyasha is just like that. All of her stuff looks like it's basically kind of the same characters. So I get your feel for that.
So, and this came out in like the 80s and the early 90s, so it's an older one. At least his H2 work and things like that, or a little bit older.
Ah,
But he did
I
boxing.
see the 80s in it.
Yeah, he did boxing. It's a lot of pastels and stuff like that. It's the
Super
art
pretty
is really
though.
nice. And what's really funny about this author, he will draw himself in it being lazy. So he'll be like at a cafe drinking and eating some spaghetti and coffee, and his manager will come up and say, "Hey, have you seen the author? He should be working right now." And he'll be skitting away like Snoopy with a pin on his shoulders, like cigarette in mouth, and it's a riot. He he has never made a bad work that I've read. So for those who haven't checked him out, I highly recommend it. So just look up Cross Game. It's a good introductory into a series because it is the only one that is translated in English.
That is really pretty though. I actually really like the older that 80s and 90s style anime look. I love it so much.
So what's really nice is this guy, he's still going to conventions over in Japan. He's still kicking.
Ooh.
So next time I'm in Japan, I'm going to a convention to track this man down. Because I credit me getting into manga to this man. By far.
Oh, that's such a nice thing too to have like a this was my introduction to.
And I went down the rabbit hole from there.
I say
So
I would talk about my introduction to because it was Ranma one half, but I didn't read the manga. I watched the anime. At the
yeah.
ripe old age of 7.
I was about that age. About 7, 8 years old when I got into it.
I see. I am still friends with my parents' friend that got me into it too.
But yeah, so if anyone hasn't checked out Cross Game, it's not my number one because my number one just is really good, but he is my number one Arthur by far. If you haven't checked it out, pull it up. You can probably find it somewhere online. Definitely worth the read, and anything else that he has written. But on that, we will go to your number two.
All right. So there's a little bit of a pattern for mine. My number 2 is called My Love Story. And this is by far my absolute favorite romance manga that I have ever read. It is probably amongst the healthiest relationships I've ever seen. And the plot is super simple. It's like a funny little, so the main male lead is a
Not
guy
good
who
looking.
is not good look. Well, actually, so they've proven that he's not good looking by Japanese standards, but that he would be kind of attractive by American standards. But for the most part, the manga does make him look a little
Burly.
bit gnarly looking.
Yeah, he's a big
He's
burly
this
man.
big, burly, super athletic looking dude, and it follows his romance with this teeny little girl, this super adorable, like they're the same age and they're in high school. And basically the first 2 chapters or so is them getting together, and then the rest of the manga is just their relationship. There is no, it's not a slow burn, it's literally just their whole relationship. And that was the thing that I loved the most about it, was I always got anxiety with those will they won't they with like with Ranma and with Inuyasha, and like you'd watch them and you're like, oh my god, when are they gonna get together? With My Love Story, you don't have to worry about it. It happens in the first 2 chapters. And it's just them being this super adorable couple. And of course, there's pushback from her friends because they're like, oh my god, why do you like that guy? And he's an amazing guy. He's super sweet, he's protective, but in a healthy way, and he's just an amazing guy all around, and she is also super sweet and super wholesome. It's sweeter than cotton candy. Like, it's super nice. Like, I could not go on about this manga more because I've seen parts of the anime, but I've read the manga all the way through.
So the anime is on my watch later list on Crunchyroll.
Would
So
recommend.
yeah, I've seen the first episode of it. I just never finished it.
I'd get
So
past the first 2 or 3 episodes and it'll
start picking up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was a little slow for me, even for the romance drama. But I definitely like the art style for it, and the from what I heard, the character development for it goes really well. So
Mm.
it's definitely on my list still. I don't think I'll ever read it, but I might finish watching it.
I found reading to be a little bit easier because the for an anime the pace is set. Like you can if you have the means to kind of fast forward a little bit, but with the manga it can go as quickly as I want it to, as quickly as I'm
Yeah.
physically able to read it.
All right. Then we'll go to my number one, which I'll give both names for this because there are two names. So Damachi, or is it wrong to pick up a girl in a dungeon? So this one follows a white rabbit, or it's his nickname, and he is a super weak kid who almost dies in this dungeon, and he's saved by this super strong female protagonist from being murdered pretty much. He gets covered in blood and he gets the nickname Tomato Boy from that. And he just wants to get stronger and stronger to prove himself to her. And it just shows his struggle of doing so because he's level 1, bottom of the barrel, and she's the number 1 ranked female adventurer at the time. So it just shows the uphill battle and the friends that he meets on the way. It's really hard to describe, but the pacing for it is really good. The art is beautiful,
Yeah.
and it is one of the few light novels that I've actually purchased and is on my bookshelf. Barnes and
I've
Noble sells it.
watched I've watched a little bit of the anime for this one, but I haven't read it yet.
Reading it is so much better. They cut out so much out of the anime that it's not even funny. Like key points in the manga were taken out to make the anime into the seasons that they are. So there's a lot more training, a lot more turning points or pivot points in the books than there is on the anime. Because you have to shorten it because you
Yeah.
only get so many episodes. But it's
I know
definitely
they got
worth
to
the
do that.
read.
I
Uh,
That'll definitely go onto my reading list because I really wanted to get into the anime. And I did like it. I just haven't finished it yet.
yeah. And one of the things I will say about the light novel, it does a lot of thought bubble ones. So you can kind of see what some of the gods are thinking that they can't portray in the anime.
I do like that. I do like
So
that a lot.
it's definitely worth picking up, and it will be on my list of light novels when I do a light novel series or an episode. So look forward to that for those who are into the light novel scene, because I've read a lot more than those than I have manga. And we will go to your number one.
My number one, my top favorite manga ever. I got about 700 chapters in.
Out
It
of the
is
1,000
Detective.
plus there is.
Yeah. It is Detective Conan or Case Closed if you've seen the anime. Um, it is an older style. It's only I'd say about the 90s if I remember correctly. 80 like late
Late
80s, early
80s, early
90s.
90s. Yeah, I think it was like 89 or like 92 time frame.
Yeah. So the plot is um there is a kid named Jimmy Kudo. He is 17. He is the greatest detective pretty much ever. And he works directly with the police department to catch people. It's very much a whodunit, which is so much fun because you can kind of play along with him while he's solving these crimes. Pretty much in the first two episodes, he solves a crime and gets his nose he he gets his nose into a place it wasn't supposed to be, and somebody tries to kill him. But the poison doesn't kill him, it turns him into a 10-year-old boy. He still has the brain of the 17-year-old Jimmy Kudo, but he is in his 10-year-old body. And in order to continue solving crime and figure out who did this to him, he gets himself adopted by his girl best friend slash crush, Rachel, and her really shitty police officer dad, Richard Moore.
Well, technically,
Uh,
he's a detective, not a police
he is a
officer.
detective that works for the police department.
Yes, they are
So
different things. So just to
fair.
clarify for those who don't know.
No, you're right. So he is the detective for like he's the really shitty detective that works kind of with the police department. He's a PI as well.
Yes.
He gets himself adopted by, or like pseudo adopted by his like childhood best friend and her dad, with the help of his kind of mad scientist inventor neighbor. And his neighbor invents him like a bow tie that'll change his voice, a watch that'll put people to sleep, and he uses this to put the shitty detective to sleep and pretend to be him to solve crimes so that people will take him seriously because nobody took him seriously as a 10-year-old. So
Yep.
he basically boosts Richard's career as a detective as the sleeping detective. And pretty much after this point, the rest of the series is just a super fun whodunit. It's a whole bunch of mysteries and murders and just my favorite part is just the trying to solve the mystery along with him and seeing how far off you were from who done it or seeing if you got close to it. That's really my favorite part of that whole series is just being able to kind of play detective with Jimmy the whole time.
Yeah. So this was on my top 5 favorite animes as well. But for the movies specifically.
Ooh, I hadn't
The
seen the movie.
movies. There's like 5 of them.
Movies. I haven't
Yeah.
seen any of the movies
The
yet.
movies are so much better than the normal series.
Is it? I did like the
It's
normal
so much better.
series.
So there's a lot more action in it, and you get more interaction with the secret agency that poisons him. It's a lot more head to head, and there's a lot
That's
of,
really cool.
and because they're not limited to the 30-minute span of a normal episode, there's more clues and bigger mysteries to find out during the hour and a half, 2 hours that the movie is. So since you haven't watched the movies yet, you need to. By far, they are some of the best anime movies I've seen.
I have a weird question for that though. Is the voice actor for the original series in the movies?
Yes, because they were all made at the same time frame. They
Oh,
they
good.
were they were they were released when the anime was still being released. So
Well,
like
see,
the
that's
early.
good. I have also noticed, have you noticed that Case Closed as a series is just poof off the internet?
See,
I find
I read it every once in a while. Like I'll see updated chapters on sites that I can't mention on stream, but no. Uh,
as do I.
but the same as like Hajime no Ippo or Fighting Spirit for those who have seen the anime. It's a boxing one that's goes head to head for chapters as Case Closed. So, um, it's one of those that it's a very niche one, but over in
Oh, yeah.
Japan, it's still really big. So I would when I was in Akihabara, there would be still posters of uh Case Closed or Detective Conan in the malls and stuff like that. So advertising little miniatures and the gotcha machines still have them. You can go
So
to
wonderful to hear. I
yeah,
just love this. I love the manga series so much.
yeah, it's hard to get it translated over here, but it is still really big over in Japan, at least when I was there a few years ago.
Well, that's what kind of stopped me at that chapter 6 or 700 is that the website that I was reading it on that I cannot disclose at this time. Uh they switched translators and they stopped translating the names for everybody because of course they have their Japanese names versus our Americanized names, and it for me like the continuity and like just
Hmm.
kind of the
So,
the the
b-
routine was what I really liked about it.
okay. So just to end up that, I'll say you can buy Case Closed still as a manga from Barnes and Noble and Books a Million. Both sell them updated. So if you're still trying to read it, I recommend buying it from the legitimate stores such as that or Allen or Walker. You can
I'll say
buy.
that's my plan. My next time I go to the bookstore and spend $300-400 on books when I
Yeah.
have the money to do that every 6 months.
But now we will go into our next segment. Today we are also going to be talking about our top favorite manhwa, which, as people don't know, isn't from Japan, but from, like, I think, is it China? I think it's China. Yeah.
Manhwa with the HUA or manhwa with a WHA?
W.
WHA is Korean manga.
All
That's
right. So
manhwa.
yeah, either way, not your traditional Japanese manga, as most people know. These you can read on most like apps like Webtoon, Tapas, and stuff like that. But we'll go back and forth just like we did with the manga and give our thoughts on each other's opinions. We will start off with you though, with your
Oh,
number 5.
how polite. So, uh, my number 5 for my manhwa it started as a light novel and it is called Light and Shadow. Now, this one is a nostalgia pick because this was my first like real experience with manhwa. The story follows a it starts off with kind of a forced arranged marriage, which I know that's not a super popular starter for that, and I definitely understand. But it's got a nice little twist in it. So the main female lead she starts off as masquerading as a maid, but she's actually the former prince from the fallen kingdom, and the person that she got married to is the secret brother of the current king, who is actually a duke at the time. And it'll sound a little bit boring, which I apologize if it doesn't come out quite right. But it follows her basically coming into being a duchess of the land and doing right by the people because her father was a terrible person and he literally did not care about the people, and it was very much he ended up French Revolution style. Um,
Guillotine. Ouch.
and her mother sacrificed her life and pretty much everybody else in the castle to make sure that she could make it out alive so that she could help restore the kingdom after his fall.
That's giving
And that's kind
very
of
Anastasia vibes.
it is a little bit Anastasia-y. It follows through, and it's a slow falling in love kind of thing. I say slow, like it doesn't happen in the first like 3 chapters, but it basically they start off as strangers and they basically fall in love with each other, and it's very sweet, but it's also I really enjoy her basically just showing off how much of a badass she is, because she every once in a while she'll have like segments where something negative happens, somebody comes and tries to kidnap her, somebody tries to attack her, they're under attack for whatever reason, that kind of stuff, and she absolutely whips everybody's, and that is amongst my favorite tropes is the kind of secret badass. I know a lot of people get tired of that kind of stuff, but that's one of my favorites is the secret badass. And she exemplifies this perfectly, and it's just so fun. It is unfortunately a pay to read on Tappytoon, if I remember correctly. It is, yeah. It is on Tappytoon, which is a pay by chapter. Um, but I would say that it was worth it for me. I definitely enjoyed it.
All right, on that end, from being a silent badass, we'll go to my number 5, which is The God of High School. It's super popular on the anime scene, but it's definitely worth the read. They do a big tournament. It's a bunch of high schoolers that are picked by the government, and they go head to head in a big battle to find out who's the strongest high schooler. Is the introduction to it, but it turns out what they're doing is they're trying to find people who have like spirits of gods in them, and are trying to prevent Ragnarok.
That
Pretty,
sounds really cool.
it is a lot of fun. The fight scenes are super clean. The coloring the palette is great. I highly recommend it for people who are into the more martial arts tournament style series. It's still ongoing, and you can read it on Webtoon, brain fart, and it is free to read on Webtoon. Up to the current chapter, you can pay to go to the next chapter that's not released yet into the free section, but you don't have to. You wait another week, it'll come to the free area, which is super nice. The art is super clean. The story building is really nice. There's twists and turns and plot twists, and it's a great series. Definitely going to be in my top 5 for a long time.
I've heard really good things about it, and you make it sound really cool.
It
So
is.
that's definitely that's gonna go on to my. I'd been kind of tiptoeing on whether or not I was gonna start it, but I think that's gonna end up on my reading list.
Definitely read it. The anime is good, but it didn't get as much publicity as it was supposed to, so I don't think they're getting another season for it. So definitely just read it. It's worth the time.
Absolutely.
But we can go to your number 4 on that.
All right. So my number 4 comes also from Tappy Toon. It is called "I Woke Up as the Ugly Duckling." Because as we go farther down, there's going to be a lot of these really long names. So this one is about it's an isekai. It is a girl who got a terminal illness and she died tragically at 22 from wasting away from being sick. And she gets isekai'd into the body of a basically it's a whole, you know, the whole nother time kind of thing. Um she is a duke's daughter. She is the unpopular duke's daughter, and she when she kind of wakes up in her body after dying in her other life, she gets all of the memories from this person, including 5 years in the future when this character dies. So she knows when she wakes up that if she doesn't change something in the next 5 years, she's gonna die. To be fair, what caused her death was that she slapped her sister, who is the fiance of the crown prince, and got herself exiled and then killed herself on her 20th birthday. So she is isekai'd into this 15-year-old girl, and she realizes, well, holy crap, I have to change everything about this so that I don't die in 5 years. And the person she was isekai'd as is she was a really nasty person, but it was from a place of trauma. She basically never got enough affection. Nobody ever really believed in her, and it all kind of fed into itself. She developed an eating disorder and she gained a lot of weight, and it was a whole bunch of stuff stacked on top of each other. The worse it got, the worse people treated her, and in the end she ended up dying. So our main character who got isekai'd has to kind of make amends for the stuff that she had done before and change who she is. I mean, it's a different person anyway, so she just kind of has to be herself at that point. But this is also one of those secret female lead badasses because she's also an elementalist, which uses mana to kind of make contracts with elemental spirits. And it's pretty cool. It goes through the process of her basically, okay, so I'll become an elementalist in a certain number of years. I'm gonna up that timeline so that I can strike out on my own and live. And it turns into her gaining way more power than she had before. And because she's nicer and polite and kind and caring to people, people are actually like, wow, you actually don't suck as a person. And people start being on her side. Um,
See,
that's
well,
very long-winded, but
yeah, well, we going off that. That kind of goes into my number 4,
ooh,
which is The Breaker. And The Breaker it's an older one, early 2000s. This kid, he's a weakling, a loser. Everybody kind of just picks on him.
oh,
And he meets this guy and learns martial arts from him pretty much. And he gets a lot stronger, but his master has some demons following him. Not in the literal sense demons, but the government pretty much is following him and trying to kill him.
well,
And
that is demons.
yeah. And it shows his personality change of being this super weak who can't do anything to learning martial arts and getting stronger and stronger and protecting his girlfriend and protecting his master and his master's soon to be baby mama. It's a ordeal. But it's a little bit more of a darker series. It, as people can probably tell from the cover art, Uh, but if you want something that's going to keep you on your toes and it's not your traditional high school martial arts one, highly recommend it. And there's a season 2 for it, and season 3 just got announced for the manga or manhwa, and I can't wait. He never disappoints, and I'm super excited to see where it goes.
Honestly, that sounds really cool. I actually have a very special place in my heart for martial artsy style manga and manhwa. Mostly dating back to like Ranma and Dragon Ball. And it is that sounds really interesting. I'm gonna have to put you're gonna have to send me the link for that one because I definitely want to see it.
Yeah, I can do that. So, but with that, we will go to your number 3.
Alrighty. So my number 3 is on Tapas. It is called The Siren Becoming the Villain's Family. I'll try to be a little bit more brief with this one. But it is also it's more of a go back in time after you die kind of isekai. The main character is a she is the child of a siren. And they're basically just humans that can use like they when they sing it uses magic, and depending on the kind of song it has different kinds of effects. And the ending, like the beginning of it, is her dying from having people abuse her power too much and being rescued until like right up to when she dies. She gets rescued too late by the villain of the story.
Hmm.
And he's pretty much the only one that ever tried to help her. Um and when she dies, she vows, she's like, if I could come back, I would make sure that your story is better because he had a really tragic backstory as well. And then she wakes up at, gosh, I think she must have been 10 or 13 or so, right before her father found out that she could speak because her mother had been protecting her.
Mhm.
And she uses her knowledge of the future to get away from her father and to get engaged, like betrothed, to what is technically the villain of the story, which is a guy that's about her age, maybe a little bit older.
Okay.
And she's trying to prevent the tragic past that he had, which was when his mother died, and shortly thereafterwards. It's kind of mysterious; nobody really knows, but they kind of hint at him having killed the rest of his family. And she vows that she's going to not let this happen, and she actually does stop his mother from dying because she's sick, and she's able to grow her powers enough to save the mom from dying. And it's just her trying to make everybody's life better, and it's everybody else just falling in love with her for being so sweet and adorable.
No, speaking of mothers dying, that will
Ooh,
kind of go into my number 3, which is Tower of God.
ooh, I
Good
have
old
heard good things.
Bam. So with Tower of God, as there's a tower, and if you make it to the top, you become God. You can control everything that goes on in this tower. And Bam, our main character, was born below the tower as an outsider. And those are shunned by people that are in the tower because they're dangerous, because they're not restricted by the rules and laws of the tower. So it shows his growth and him finding friends and finding out who he is because he was just in this darkness by himself. No parents, no siblings, no friends, except for this one girl who showed up when he was like, I think he was like 6 or 7 years old. He was young. And even she left him. She went to go climb the tower because she wanted to see the stars. And
Oh,
he chases after her. That's his one goal, is just to be with her. Not any romantic way, just all wanted to be next to her and see her dreams come true. Because for him, she was enough for him. Like, that's all he needed was somebody to be with him. And it shows how crazy she is and his development of going from this meek, quiet kid with no social skills at all to being a god slayer, practically. And it is great development, great art. There is an anime for it on Crunchyroll as well, so if you don't have the time to read it on Webtoon, because it's also on Webtoon, I definitely suggest watching it. It's worth your time. The anime keeps up with the manga or the manhwa really well. The pacing is really nice. The art is beautiful, and there's great story development. And there's things that catch you blindsided. Like I said at the beginning about dead mothers. Turned out his mother was one of the people who climbed the tower, the very first people to climb it. And the current god of the tower liked her. She didn't like him. She got knocked up by the god's best friend and ran away. And the god threw a fit and killed his father and her after finding out, but couldn't find Bam. And it shows so many twists and turns, and it's such a great series. Highly recommend.
I say it sounds really good.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. But my love, your number two, which would be
My number 2 is The Hero's Savior on Tablet. And I'll try to keep this one a little bit more brief than the last two, I promise. So the main female lead is this, if I remember correctly, this one is not an isekai of any kind, I promise. The main character is oh wait, no, this is actually an isekai, never mind.
oh,
uh
Rune's gonna love you.
oh, I
He
know.
hates isekais.
Oh, I know he does. So it's more of a knowing things from the future kind of isekai. Um, it's only ever brought up at the beginning. They kind of forget about it once you get into the ending portions of this.
Mm.
It's brought up once that this is a reincarnation isekai and that she vaguely remembers that they basically bring up that it's one of those, oh, I was isekai'd into a book. And the book is found in a special astral library that only she and one other person have access to. And this other person is essentially it's like a spirit guardian who stays about the same age as her. To keep it a little bit more brief, she is being experimented on and abused by her father to come up with a cure for what they call contamination, which is it's basically being poisoned by demons. There's areas of land that are uninhabitable and poisoned by demons caused by they call them towers, but it's essentially reverse dungeons.
Okay.
They have to go through the maze and go to the core of the dungeon and excavate it and get rid of it so that the land can be restored. And she is able to escape and go live with her grandfather, who is the archmage of the kingdom, and her uncle, who is a marquis. And it's basically a revenge plot. She grows up using because she also has elemental powers, and that was part of the reason that she was safe to be experimented on. And she gets her revenge on her father. And it's really nice. It's one of those female badass kinds of things. She's got super cool powers and she can use elemental powers, and it's really cool. And the art style is gorgeous too.
Yeah, well, going off that, with my number two, because it also involves revenge and powers, is Witch Hunter. So, Witch Hunter, you're in a world where females can be born as witches, but mana drives you crazy.
Hmm.
And so, the more they use their powers, the more they want to kill non witches. And so, you have the Witch Hunters Corps, and their job is to track down and exterminate bad witches.
Crazy witches.
Yeah. And our main character, he was taught by one of the four strongest witches in the world, who also hunts witches. And his little sister got turned into a witch and killed his master. And so it's a revenge story about him trying to find his sister, destroy her witch's hat, which produces mana so she'll stop being crazy. And their path along the way. Oh, and he uses guns to kill witches that run off of mana that he steals from witches. And it is a blast. And there's a lot of twists and turns and like what the hell did I just read type situations and moments. It went on hiatus for a minute, which is kind of unfortunate, but they did just start picking it back up, which I'm super happy about. Uh, it's a solid read. It's a little hard to get into at the beginning. It's a little slow paced, but definitely worth looking into. And this is also on Rune's list of things that he likes to read as well. It is a great series.
Ooh.
Yes,
I'll have to get into that with you because you're gonna have to send me your whole list
I
in
got you.
writing so that I can look all of this up.
Well, and he becomes kind of like a hero of like everybody. But speaking of heroes, we can go to your number two.
Well, actually, it's funny that you
No,
say the "What the fuck did I just read?"
number one. Sorry, we're on your number one.
So
I brain
my
farted.
number one is also kind of a "What the heck did I just read?" It is called "I Am the Soldier's Ex-Girlfriend," and it is also on Tappy Toon. This one, I put this as my number one because it literally, I had to like, I was like, at the end, I was like, there were so many twists and turns for it. The bare bones of it is that the main character, it starts off making you think it's an isekai, and then it isn't actually an isekai at the end. The main character is a woman who, again, Buskun comes in, smack, dead. Oh, hey, I'm reincarnated as the female lead in this romance novel that I read/wrote. Except that she's like, I know how this ends, and I don't want to be part of this dude's harem. So she breaks up with him. She's like, no, I'm not going to be part of this harem. So she breaks up with him, and the whole story is her kind of trying to strike out on her own and live without really needing to be with anybody, even though she does end up meeting somebody that's super nice and turns out to actually be the literal devil, the bad guy for the series. He disguises himself, uh, lies to her about most of his life, creates a fake job for her to work at so that she'll stay with him. And it's nuts. Like reading this is just crazy. You're like, what am I looking at? And and this guy is the arch nemesis for her ex-boyfriend. And you also watch her ex-boyfriend slowly go crazy and obsessive, and you find out that she's actually died a couple times, and she's died at his hands, the ex-boyfriend's hands, a couple times because she tried to help the villain because he hadn't actually done anything wrong. She tries to help him escape being killed, and he actually kills her in one of these past lives.
I have seen ads for this series.
It is definitely, I would put it on your on to read list just for the M Night Shyamalan style twists that you'll see in here. I don't want to spoil everything about it because I do want you to read it. But there is a serious M Night Shyamalan twist after what I've just said, including the whole him creating an entire place of work just so she doesn't leave him.
So it's funny you said it, with my number one,
Ooh.
which is Sunken Rock. If you've read Dr. Stone, it's the same author, same art style. Dr. Stone is his PG version. Sunken Rock is his 18 plus version.
Oh.
It is about this kid who falls in love with his Yakuza daughter. The daughter runs away to Korea, becomes a cop. He follows her over there to try to woo her still. And then he somehow becomes the boss of a Korean gang as she's a police officer.
That's a
And
really funny. That's a really funny combo trope, though.
it is,
I vibe with that a lot.
but there's a lot of twists and turns, and it shows his progression of taking responsibility for his new family or his new mob that he's taking control over. The art is really detailed. It's super hyper shaded. It's a great visual thing to look at. The story, I think there weren't any big parts that I was like, what the hell is going on? It was all really fluid.
It's really nice,
And
though.
but you never could guess what was going to happen next.
And that's really refreshing to be able to have a you don't know what's going to happen next but not have like the big old twist with it.
Yeah. Well,
The
the ending definitely does have a twist. The
I say
da-
twists are still good.
but if you want something that's visually appealing, has great story, is not meant for children, and not even just from an etchy or an inappropriate way, it's just the subjects they cover you wouldn't understand as a kid. So it's definitely an adult read, which is why I was really surprised he came out with Dr. Stone after this.
That's really cool though. I'm looking at the art style for it and that looks really nice. I would call it detailed, I think, but
Mhm.
it still looks really nice. Like it's
It's
really nice
super
and
clean. And it's
yeah.
not just his cover arts that are like this. This is his entire series. This man studied human anatomy to draw these characters. So every
That's
muscle
wonderful.
is where the muscle would be. It's never bigger than it would naturally be found. Everything is hyper detailed. It is super nice. Shows the bone structure of how an actual human is when something breaks. Like there's a couple goofy moments in it, but this man, he spent years studying human anatomy to draw this one series.
I really like that. I love that for him because it's something that we don't really. I mean, I know that there's artists that still do that, and I know that that's still pretty prevalent in like when you start getting into this like the very sophisticated kinds of arts, where you study human anatomy. I am not going to talk about the TikTok I saw where what got brought up, but I really like the idea of studying human anatomy in order to create a little bit more of a realistic art. I still love the like the chibi and the anime art styles, but I do also really like when things are like when you have to put that kind of an effort into a series like that. That's just wonderful.
Yeah. But I think this was a pretty good list. I got some from your side that I'm definitely going to have to check out. And I hope that you got
oh,
some from mine as well.
I absolutely did. I am super excited to get started on the list.
Well, then we're going to do a little bit of a closeout. Is there anywhere that people can find you? Like any streaming services, Instagrams, anything like that?
So I will start doing more streams going forward. At the moment, I'm only doing the Artificer Alley tabletop RPGs, but I'm going to start getting more into Twitch in the future, at which point I will go ahead and I'll unveil all of my things for that at that time. But I think that what you and Rune are doing are a lot more interesting than what I do, because I know that our lovely uh, tech and kind of producer uh, he's doing a lot more interesting stuff than I am.
All right, well, then we'll go off to me. You can find me here now on Tuesdays starting next week at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, where we'll be covering anime, manga, manhwa, light novels of that general genre. You can find me at Artificial Alley, where we'll be doing the Power Rangers streams on Wednesday, and I will be on the Fallout stream on this Monday. So you look forward to see me there. We are in the works working with Artificial Alley on a couple other side projects between here and there, trying to link them together. So I'm excited to unveil that when more information comes out. But you can find me at Shorty Mafia on Twitch, where I will be starting doing Red Dead RP. And Arc Arc
I say I'm
Ascended
sure
is
Rune
my
is super
main.
happy about that.
Yeah, he's kind of pulling me by the ear for this one. But you can find me streaming Arc Ascended, or I do a lot of Minecraft, high pixel Minecraft to be more precise. So if you just like a chill, relaxing, just kind of talk while I game type of stream, come on by. I think that covers everything. Oh, no, actually, on Tuesday, we will be introducing my new co-host, lovely gentleman named Dawn. So look forward to that. Please come and give him all the love and attention that he deserves. We'll be covering a couple of interesting subjects coming up to give him a nice introduction to the streaming platform. So I think that will conclude everything for tonight, though.
It
Hope
was a
y'all.
lot of fun to be here, by the way. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have to have you come again. Don't be a stranger.
Absolutely not. I'll be right here.
All right, but we're gonna end stream here. I hope y'all have a wonderful night, and I will catch you next week.
Thank you for watching.